Western Australia's farmers are targeting Labor seats after a vote to ban live sheep exports. The trade will be phased out by 2028, but farmers are warning Labor of their plans to overturn the ban. The ban is predicted to cost more than 4,000 people their jobs. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is offering a $107 million package for an $80 million industry, which is a move slammed by the Nationals.
The answer here is the proper regulation and punishment of those who do the wrong thing, not ban the industry for an entire industry. The Prime Minister is saying, look, this industry is worth $80 million a year, but I've given them $107 million, so they should be happy. Well, hang on, let's just think about your own circumstance. If I told you you're out of a job for life, I'm going to put you out of work for life, but I'm going to give you a redundancy package of 1 year's wage, you wouldn't accept that.
Keep the Sheep campaigners have already been driving convoys around Western Australia to protest the ban. Let's bring in now Leader of the Nationals, David Littleproud, and chat more about this. Now, as I understand it, this ban was brought into place because of cruelty of transporting these sheep overseas, especially to the Middle East. So why are you so adamantly against this ban?
Well, there were incidents that took place in 2018 and on one shipment. And what we did is put in place reforms that went from measuring the success of these shipments from a mortality methodology to one of animal welfare. We lead the world in animal welfare standards because we actually measure to the millimetre the length of wool on a sheep before it goes on, the kilograms of it. We actually also measure the score of the airflow of each individual boat. And we actually have people on these boats that count the pants per minute of the sheep on those boats. So we reformed it to be world leading, and we haven't had incidents since. And what we're saying is that if we remove ourselves from this, you will see the horrific and senseless death of millions of sheep from other parts of the world, in Sudan, South Africa, Ethiopia, who will take this market because we've cut and run. But we'll also reduce the standards in terms of the processing of those sheep in country, because those countries in the Middle East won't live up to our standards. They don't have to. And so this is morally bankrupt what we're doing, and it's senseless. There's no science to predicate the reason for this. And what Labor's going to do now is come after the cattle industry, which takes away food security for our nearest neighbour, Indonesia, as well as take away the food security for some of our Middle Eastern country trading partners. That is no reason other than to garner preferences from the Animal Justice Party at the next election.
So to what extent is all this about politics rather than policy itself?
Yeah, well, it's all about politics. We gave the government an opportunity to go and sit in front of farmers. They were promised a Senate inquiry. They're not phasing this out to 2028, and said, well, why wouldn't you take the time to go and talk to farmers and understand the science and explain the science as to why you're shutting down if it's predicated on animal welfare? I asked the Prime Minister yesterday in Parliament, name one country that has better and highest animal welfare standards in the export of animals than Australia. He can't name one because there isn't one. So this is ideological. And what these farmers, they've got over 60,000 signatories, 4,000 volunteers that are going to start door knocking through the streets of Perth this weekend and on, right through the election. Australian agriculture is under siege by Anthony Albanese. So too is your food security. So too is your cost of living, because he's driving up your food prices because of this assault on Australian farmers, whether it be sheep, whether it be the Murray-Darling, or whether it be the senseless regulations around green tape.
David, let's talk about the future Made in Australia bill, obviously going to Parliament today. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, we're yet to see the details, but we'll look through those details. What we do know, but, is they're prepared to spend $45 million of Australian taxpayers' dollars on an advertising campaign.
Jane already mentioned that.
Sorry?
Jane Hume had already mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would have thought that if something as monumental as this, would you really need to spend $45 million in advertising to promote it? We'll look at the details, but they're already spending significant amounts of money, and they've put $1 billion out there, announced $1 billion for solar panels when there is an oversupply in China already. You've got to question the government in picking winners and how good they'll be at that. But we'll look at the legislation, we'll work through it, and we'll make an assessment as we see the details. Until it's been tabled and we can work through that, then obviously we'll reserve our judgment.
And to the plan by the coalition to rein in retailers, especially divestiture powers, has it been shown to work in other countries?
Divested power, we already have divested powers in this country. In fact, Anthony Albanese supported those. We brought those in 2019 for the energy sector. But they've worked in the United States, UK and Canada. They've been used a number of times in the US, but they're only used as a last resort. And what we've done is put safeguards around this so that if they are used and determined by a court, not by politicians, if they are determined by a court to take place, then it can't have a negative impact on competition. It can't have a reduction in employment, cause a reduction in employment. So there are safeguards that we're putting in place, but we're also ramping up and scaling up the penalties, because the government at the moment on infringement notices is putting out 187,800 that the ACCC can give to the supermarket. They'd pull that out of one of their tills, in one of their stores to pay for it. We're ramping it up to 2 million and then having a supermarket commissioner to protect and to be able to triage complaints. So this isn't adding...
So you're saying the ACCC doesn't have enough teeth at the moment, doesn't work effectively?
We're giving them more teeth, we're giving them more penalties. There's no increase in the regulatory burden on the supermarkets. For them to say this is going to increase costs is absurd. They already adhere to the Grocery Code of Conduct. They already adhere to Section 46 of the Consumer and Competition Act.
But some Liberals MPs are saying that this is anti-business and we're moving towards a planned economy.
It's not. It's working within the current constraints of the regulatory guide rails that already exist, but we're giving greater penalties because the supermarkets haven't respected the penalties that have been put in place. It's as simple as that. If they do nothing wrong, they have nothing to fear. It won't cost them a cent. But if they do something wrong in life and in society, you always set deterrents, but those deterrents, if you have to use them, should come at a cost.
Thanks so much for your time. Nationals leader David Littleproud.